This is the really last question, and I mean it's kind of an interesting question. I don't know if it's exactly still relevant, but the question is religion ever an adequate justification for war? Obviously, there have been religious wars throughout history. They're not as prevalent today, but if someone believes they're waging war maybe against a different culture and believe they need to spread their culture and their religion to a different part of the world, is that ever acceptable?
Let me deal with this real quick for a sigh. I feel like we've had control over this a while ago. Not if you're talking about any sort of a literal or a violent war. Religion is not a justification for committing a crime. I mean, just like you can't use it to condone human sacrifice, you also can't use it to condone bombing someone or invading someone. So no, I don't think that's ever an appropriate justification.
I think oftentimes religion is kind of put on as a cloak over other wars and intentions. Like reasons for invading, they'll say it's religion, when really it's for some ulterior motive. But even that is not okay.
So you think the entire premise of a religious war is not really
acceptable?
Issue?
No. Because most religions also like preach nonviolence, whatever, love thy neighbor.
But it depends on the circumstance.
Oh, yeah, true.
I do think that it's a justification for other forms of conflict sometimes. Like if you want to avoid trading with someone, or if you want to stage a peaceful protest against someone, I think that if you believe that's right, then that's an appropriate justification. I think that our government and every government needs to be very careful making sure that it doesn't verge over into a crime. Let's go.
What about more peaceful methods of spreading your religion? You talked about justifying dropping bombs with religion, but what if you were to go take food to a foreign country and part of the sending of the food were to make to send missionaries, to send people intended to convert the natives to your own religion? Is that a justifiable action?
Yes. I think that's been a good thing in many cases. What you're describing sounds a lot like a mission trip to me, and that's definitely an activity I support.
I agree. You can't outlaw people trying to spread their religion.
I try to spread my religion.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully not in a shaking it in your face and wanting to attack you way.
As long as it's not in like a violent or threatening or forceful manner. I don't think there's anything wrong with people trying to share their ideas.
So with that kind of conditioning of aid on religious pretenses, and this is a question for both of you, are you claiming that the use of biopower to further religious gains is justified?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's biopower? Human?
Biopower was a concept outlined by philosopher Michel Foucault in 1970. I could go into what biopower is in depth. Okay.
Just a little,
not in depth, just
Yeah.
a little
surface
definition.
level.
Surface level?
Yeah.
Biopower is not really a surface level thing. I guess if that's the case, I withdraw my question.
I'm all confused. Yeah.
So, off of that, what Solomon is really talking about is conditioning of the way we live our lives, and conditioning like the idea that I can feed you, but you have to have like certain conditions around that. Are you considering that an acceptable action?
I don't think, well, I've never been on a mission trip, but I'm pretty sure they're not like, they won't withhold food from you unless you like say you are of a certain religion. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I've never heard of that happening.
yeah.
Not literally, but like the subtext is that like you are being converted. There's not necessarily another option for the converts if you're the only ones having contact with them.
Right.
Again, I'm not sure that it's nearly so forceful as that.
Well, it's.
I get what you're saying, But are you saying then that we shouldn't allow people to help people if they're trying to convert them also? Like, it's just not, if we want things, good things to be done, that's kind of, I guess, the price you have to pay.
Conversion is also such a violent, such a black and white term. I mean, I think that most missionaries and most people who are trying to spread whatever they happen to believe are just hoping to open other people up to the possibility, or perhaps to break some stereotypes about people of their religion, or perhaps to try to share Jesus or whomever. But I don't think that anyone goes into a foreign country or goes into any situation planning to walk out with a handful of new converts. I could be wrong, but I've never run into instances in which it worked that way.
I think what he might be referring to, I heard recently a news story within the past 6 months of a woman who headed a missionary group that traveled to an African nation to encourage the government to pass laws for the death penalty for homosexuals. And so that might be the coercion that he might be referring to.
Well,
Was she coercing
not
them, or
But
was she
the laws
just...
were passed.
Was she feeding them, hoping to use the food again?
She was using influence to try to get laws passed to further her religious agenda, and subsequently there are death penalty laws against homosexuality in African nations now.
I consider that an atrocity, but honestly, if you talk about the way in which she's influenced the government, I don't see anything making it different in another form of lobbying. I mean, we do have religious groups trying to influence our governments all the time. And I think that while her ideas may have been repulsive, her methods may have been acceptable.
Legal.
I think it's important that we're very, very careful not to judge people's activities based on the content of their ideas. Because once you start drawing those lines,
what do you mean? I mean,
well, if you have a church that advocates the death penalty for homosexuals, then you shouldn't tax them and not tax another church. I think that as long as you're not breaking any laws, beliefs are beliefs.
okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Are there any additional questions? All right. Would you guys like to make just a few closing statements? Kind of like the beginning statements.
Okay. Well, I definitely agree with her on a bunch of the issues, a bunch to most of them. Just in general, I feel like while the separation of church and state doctrine is incredibly important and a key aspect of our country runs, we shouldn't allow it to get in the way of the accommodation of religion. And also that sometimes religion is going to bleed in because, after all, a government and a society is made up of, in addition to agnostic people, a lot of religious people. And that we should be very careful to preserve the rights of everyone, but at the same time that there are occasions in which we should accept and even embrace that. That's like all I have to say.
Well, I know a lot of amazing Christians who really take all the good of the Bible and God, which there is a lot, and really apply that to their lives, and I think that's really commendable. But I don't think that it belongs in the government or schools, or that's about it. But anywhere else, yeah, go at it. Be religious.
Nice.
All right. I guess that's
Good.
about it. Anyone can have some more snacks? There's plenty of them.